Hi there again, guys. Boyd here with you. This is part 11 of our Polar Lights 1350 build up here. And today we're going to be working on a little bit of paint work on the model. We got a lot of our work done on the saucer. I'll show you here what I've been working on. I've been starting to paint on my Aztecs here on the top. And you can see that around the bridge area. And I've started to paint some details on the bridge now. And let's move this out of the way. You can see I've got my rec deck put on there, and it's all painted in the little band around that. So what we're going to be doing today is we're going to paint this little detail here at the crystal, and up here on the I'm not sure what this is called, but I'm going to paint that area, and we've got to do this little spot down here. And I'll show you what I've been working on my deflector dish here. Now this is the dish. I've got to paint this outside ring here yet, but you can see that what I've done with this is I painted it, the rim there, and that familiar dark blue that we see on the Enterprise. That's the same color that I'll be using on the photon launcher bulkhead. But something that I did here kind of unique, a lot of people try to figure out how to light block this or whatever to get it so it's not too bright when you put your lights behind it. That's something I'm really picky about. I think a lot of the builds that are out there, the deflector looks way too bright on it. It looks like a flashlight on the front. So what I did here is going back and looking at the original model, it looked like what they did behind that lens is they actually painted it. And so I did a real light coat of gray on the back side here, if you can see that. And if you notice in the center, I marked off used a little piece of round masking tape and blocked that off. And then when I painted the whole thing, I removed it and then just lightly dusted over that. So what you get here is, if you look at it in this light here, hopefully it's not glaring too much, you can see what I get with that is that once we put a LED behind that, it's still going to light. But it's going to give us that nice little hot spot there in the middle as well, and then trail off on the edges like it's supposed to. We've got our photo etch part that goes around the ring here too to add that detail, but I've got to add that color on the outer ring here too. But that's what I did with the deflector dish. And what we're going to do here is we're going to work on the getting this part painted on here. We're going to paint this little section in the back. I've got to paint the top part of the bridge here. I'm using this pearlescent paint, and you can see it kind of shows up here and then it kind of doesn't, similar to what they had on the original studio model. And this I just masked by hand, but I'm going to be using the I've been working on painting the decals, and it's just been going, it's working fine, but it's just been going so slow that what I decided to do is to go with the Trek modeler method. So I laid these all on here by hand basically, and I ordered the Aztec dummy set for this. So once I get that in, probably Monday or Tuesday, I'm going to start laying down these panels on this thing and start painting the rest of the Aztecs on using the Trek modeler method. And I think it's going to turn out pretty nice. I'm really happy with the iridescent colors. Just kind of moving the camera around so you can see how they change colors and stuff. It's pretty cool. So, okay guys, I'm going to set up here. I'll put the camera on the tripod, and we're going to mask off this stuff. And I'll show you a little bit about how I do that. And then we're going to airbrush, starting off with the top of the bridge here, and then we're going to do some duck egg blue, the same color here on the forward section of the bridge and back here, and then around the impulse crystal there. And then I'm going to get out the little crystal itself that goes in there, and we're going to paint that framework onto that. And I'll show you a neat little trick to get that done. So I'll be right back. Let's get the camera set up and we'll get going. Okay everybody, well we're set up and ready to go here, and what I'm going to be using to mask off the bridge here on the top, we got to make this nice circle here. So I've got some of this thin 3M flexible vinyl tape. This stuff is really good for doing this kind of work because you can make these nice curves and not get a bunch of wrinkles in it, and it seals down on there really tight and holds. So let me cut off a little piece of this, and we're going to mask off our bridge top real quick. And then we'll get that sprayed, and then we can switch colors and go over to our blue and start working on the top of the BC deck. I've got my handy dandy magnifying visor on here, so to help me see this a little bit better. Just going to start off here on this spot here, just work my way around. And what I'm doing is I'm keeping a nice little bit of tension on this as I go around. That helps to keep the wrinkles out of it. And we'll get the edge here covered up with this stuff, and then we're going to come back with some bigger tape and that's going to help us cover up these larger areas. You can see this is laying down there really nice and smooth. It works great for this kind of stuff. Making a nice round circle all the way around, just keeping a little bit of tension on that. And when I get to the end here, what I'll do is overlap it a little bit. I'll show you that up close here in just a second when I finish, so that we don't get a point on it. I've got just a little bit, I gotta straighten that out. Okay, that looks good. And then we just trail it off like that and go to the outside of your edge so you don't wind up in the top and leave a little bit of a line or something like that there. But you can see how nice and smooth that's on there. No wrinkles, no anything. It's going to seal that on there perfect. And so now what we'll do is we'll come back and put some bigger tape on here real quick. Just get the rest of this area covered up real nice so we don't get any overspray on that. And then we're just going to touch it up with our airbrush real quick. Make short work of this. Now the colors that I chose for this, I'm trying to, they changed it a little bit during the course of some of the movies, and I'm just kind of going for the look that they had in the motion picture again in the Star Trek II, the early versions of the ship. And they had this iridescent color on the top of the bridge. It's a gold, but it's like a pearl gold where you can't see it all the time. It's only when it reflects in certain light. So, okay, we've got that ready to go. I'll lift this up now. Make sure I'm sealed all the way to my edge. I'm almost got a little spot right there where it's kind of close. Let's clean that up. Okay, we're ready to spray that. Let me check my airbrush and make sure that we're good to go there. Alright, I've got to change colors real quick, guys, so I'll be right back here and we'll start spraying this down. Okay guys, well I'm back here. I just had to change colors in the brush real quick and I'm ready to go. I've loaded this up with some color here. This is a pearlescent gold. And we don't need to put this on very thick because this is meant to be sort of you see it, you don't see it kind of thing, and that's what pearlescent effect paint does. So let's just put a little bit on here. I'm going to test spray a little spot first. We're good to go. I'm just back about 4 or 5 inches on this. I don't want to be right on top of it. Just want to lay it on there. Make sure I'm on covering the whole thing. And that's it. That's all we're doing to this. Now you might not even be able to see it there in the shot. I'll try to zoom in on it here for you in a second. And that's just what you want with this. You don't really want to, with those pearl colors, you don't really want to, they're not supposed to be over exaggerated, but if I pick it up and I move it around here a little bit, maybe you can see it a little bit better, but that's all you want right there, just that little effect. And that will match the front part of our bridge there. There's a couple little small details on the side of the bridge I have to paint on, and I'll work on them later, but what we're going to do now is set up and get to work on our saucer top here on the top of the BC deck. So let me bring that over here. And we've got to paint this little area here with the blue color. So what we're going to do here is we're going to do the same thing using this nice 3M tape again. And what I'm going to do, there's some little detail here, so what I'll do is I'll paint this all blue first, and then I'm going to come back and mask and paint a little bit of white back in these little grooves here to get that detail back. But we want to paint the whole thing initially, so let me get my visor back on here so I can see what I'm doing. Make sure I'm in camera here. Move up a little bit. Okay. And I got a couple of questions from you guys about airbrushes and paints and things too, so before we wrap up here today, I'm going to show you a little bit about that. Let's start off here on this corner. again, I'm just going to use this tape and keep a little tension on it, following on that line that we see there on the edge. And you can see that there's a little lip that sticks out on this, and I'm just staying just underneath it, keeping a little tension on it so I don't get any wrinkles, and the tape will kind of tuck itself in there just real nice all by itself. A piece of hair trapped under it. Dogs must have been out here again. Okay, we'll get that going around here. Okay, we're going to wind up right like that. Now we've got to make a little upswing here. We can't make that sharp of a bend, so what I'll do is just cut this off. See, we got a little bit of an angle there, so I'm going to cut that same angle as close as I can on my tape here. It's actually the other way. And we'll just add this little piece in here. That's pretty good. Now we'll continue on with the tape again. We've got another curve we've got to make there towards the back, so we're probably not going to be able to make that corner because it's about a 90-degree corner here. So I'll just make another cut. A little bit crooked there. Straighten that out. That looks pretty good to me. I gotta go straight across here. Now, on something like this that I'm doing right here, you wouldn't necessarily need to use this type of tape. In other words, we could just, for a straight shot like that, we could just come in here. In fact, I think that's what I'll do because we've got to cover up part of that rear section anyway. Okay, now we've got to come over here and make our same little cut again. After you work with this tape for a little while, you'll really get the hang of it too. And like I said, there's being that it's vinyl like this, it has really good sticking power. Not too hard though, where it'll rip your paint off, but it that built-in flexibility is what gives it the advantage as far as being able to make these curves and things like that. So it works out really great for this small detail painting. Go up just a little bit more there. We want to keep everything nice and pretty and nice and symmetrical here on both sides. So just taking a look at it. Looks pretty good. Alright, one more part there and we should be pretty close. Okay, I'm pretty happy with that. So now what we'll do is we'll just quickly, I'm going to switch to a little bit wider tape here so I can cover more area. With an airbrush, you don't need to, I mean, if you work with an airbrush very long, you'll learn how to control it and keep your overspray down and things like that. So it's not necessary to cover up this entire top of this model just to spray this one little area here and waste a whole bunch of material, paint, or tape. So we're just going to stay a good 2 or 3 inches away from it here on the edges, and we'll be just fine. Okay, I'll get the rest of this taped up, but you can see just so far what we've been doing on this, and then we're going to come back and we'll show getting it sprayed down, so I'll be right back with that. Alright everybody, well we're set up again here with our airbrush, and this time we've got our blue in here, and we're going to be spraying the impulse crystal here, the area, and you can see I did the same thing again, just use my vinyl tape to make the nice tight circle around there, and then cover the rest of the area with my regular masking tape. Now you can see I'm not very far away from this. The trick to this is not to get too far back and let your paint spray all over it. We're going to get a little bit closer to this one, and we're just going to dust it on. I want to make sure I get down in those edges there too, because you're going to be able to see that a little bit. Okay, then we'll move up here to the bridge top here, or the BC deck top. Okay, and there we go. Looks really good. Now, airbrushing is nice to be able to do because, like I said, you can control your amount of volume in your paint. Let me talk about the airbrush here just a little bit. I got a question about the airbrushes, and now this airbrush here is what you call a dual action airbrush. In other words, you can control your paint flow much more. With a single action, you basically press and it starts spraying. With an airbrush, let me get rid of some of my pressure here so I can show you how the button works. Basically, with a dual action airbrush now, you can engage your air here, you can control your airflow here, and then by gradually pulling back on this lever here, you can control your paint flow. So this gives you the ability to do shading and controlling the texture of your paint. There's so many different methods that you can use, and I do recommend that if you invest in an airbrush that you go ahead and get a dual action brush to start with. You're going to wish you did after you bought a single action. A single action is fine for just basic spraying, but a dual action airbrush gives you the ability to do all kinds of artistic things, like I said, shading. For example, getting closer and farther away. You can make fine lines, dots, things like that. There's a lot of, if you go look around on the internet, and a lot of airbrush kits include information or airbrushing drills that you go through to kind of teach you the techniques of different ways that you can use an airbrush. And once you practice on that a little bit, and if you use this for a while, you'll get the hang of it. Now the airbrush has to be cleaned, and I'll show you the basic. This is an Awada airbrush. I use an Awada combo here with the airbrush and compressor, and you can see here at the rear we have our needle. Now basically what you do to take this apart is you'll loosen this little jam nut here, and you can slide your needle right out of that. Now be careful when you do that, because the mechanism in here, the trigger, is held in place with the needle going through it. So if you pull that out of there, you could lose that and that can fall out. It's no big deal. You can get it back in there, but it takes a little bit of work. Now this adjustment right here that you can see that I'm turning is basically your volume control adjustment, so that moving that slightly in or out will adjust how sensitive the trigger is and how much you have to move it backward to engage the paint. So if you want your paint to come in really easily, kind of like a hair trigger, you move it a little bit forward. If you want to have your paint come in a little later so you can kind of control a little bit better, you back it off just a little bit. And here at the front, you can see that these tips are removable. After you spray so many times, you'll want to take these off and soak them in some lacquer thinner to keep them clean. And you can actually take the entire front of the brush and get you a little cup with lacquer thinner and just lay it in there and let it soak overnight, and that'll get rid of all the debris, and then just blow it out with some compressed air. Now, cleaning this gun, what I'll do basically is after about every, I don't know, week or two of using it off and on, I'll completely disassemble it and clean it. Now, what I mean by disassemble, you can completely break this down. You can take all the tips off, you can take the needle out, you can take this entire adjustable section out, and occasionally it needs a little bit of oil too. And when you take it apart, you can pull this trigger out and you'll basically put a couple drops of, I'll use this Marvel Mystery Oil here. It's for air tools, and you just put a couple of drops in there, and that'll keep the trigger from getting sticky, because when it needs oil, you'll be able to tell, because this trigger will start sticking on you when you push down on it and it doesn't release, or it starts, you know, spraying air all the time and doesn't come back fully. But that's just a few tips about this. Now, this is acrylic urethane paint that I'm using, and this is actually some of the paint that I'll be introducing for sale here pretty soon. This is my Cosmic Colors line of paints, and I mix these colors. Acrylic urethane is a solvent-based paint, and it can be used on these plastic models. In fact, it's formulated for it. It's got a plastic adhesion promoter built into it, even though I use my plastic to prep my parts anyway. But it's flexible, it won't crack. It uses a basic urethane reducer, which you can buy at pretty much anywhere to reduce it. It's reduced about 4 to 1. So you have to thin it down. Now, this paint can be stored. If you have a little bit of this and you have some left over, you can put it in a little jar and you can store it. It'll stay that way. The shelf life of this is really long, and the dry time on this is really quick because it's solvent based. And again, you can use it with any types of primers and top coats. So if you want to use a lacquer or acrylic based clears, it has no problem. This paint is extremely stable, and they developed it so that you can use it with a wide range of other products and not get any kind of reactions. Okay, so a little bit about the painting there and the airbrush. What we're going to do now is I'll pull the tape off of this, and we're going to come back, and what I'm going to be doing now is mask. Actually, I'm going to pull this off right here so you guys can see how nice that turned out. In the front here, we've got to do a little bit of work to add there's some little white detail notches that kind of go in there. We're going to do that just by using some more of this vinyl tape. But let me pull this mask off the back of the crystal here so you can see how nice and clean that came out. Isn't that perfect? That's really nice. We might have missed that edge there just a little bit, and I'll just touch that up. That's no problem. But this works really good, and this paint's pretty much already dry. That's the beauty of this stuff. You can paint, and it's kind of humid out here today, and you can paint in high humidity, and this stuff dries incredibly fast. So there we go. We're ready to do our crystal next, and we'll show you that in just a second. So let me put some masking tape on this now, and I'll switch over to my white color, and we're going to come in and add those little details there. And then we're going to call it a wrap on the bridge here. So let me get set up for that, and I'll be back in just a second. Alright guys, there's a look at our bridge just to show you real quick. I'll get a little tighter shot of it here for you. You can see we did all of our paint work there, and everything turned out really nice. Real happy with that. Our crystal there looks really good at the back. And so what we'll be doing next is we're going to come back and start working on our little lens here, and I'll show you what I'm going to do with that. We're going to sand that. We're going to put some thin tape on that and sand that down, and we'll get our framework real nice on that. So we'll be right back with that in just a second. Alright everybody, well here we are again, and well, you know what they say about the best laid plans? Well, this didn't work out too well here on the crystal. Our Scotch tape just didn't do the trick that I was hoping. I was really hoping to show you guys that little thing today. It works very well if you have the right tape, but that tape wasn't the right stuff, and the other masking tape that I have here is just too thick for it. So I wound up going in here and just painting it by hand, and I had a couple boo-boos on it here and there, but I went back with my hobby knife and just scraped it off and then re-clear coated it. So I think it came out pretty good. I think it'll pass. And then we finished up our other work here on the bridge is all sitting down on there now. We've got I've got to put some fiber optic in that up here at the top, and then we've got to put our rear bulkhead on, which I've got to make that a little bit taller too to compensate, and we should have that pretty well wrapped up. So things are going to move along pretty good here now. I'll be back a little bit later this week with some more updates on this. We're going to start getting into some of the other wiring now for the control boards and the assembly of the model. Now we can start building some of the parts out. We've got a lot of this prep painting done. The secondary hull, I've started working on the bottom and starting installing the side panels and stuff, and I'll show you all that in the next video. But once we get all the sub-assemblies done, we've got a lot of Aztec painting to do here, so that's going to take me a little bit of time. So this build is not going to go as fast as some of my other ones have, but I think in the end it's all going to be worth it. When you see all those Aztecs painted on there in the end, I think it's going to really look nice. So I'm really looking forward to that. So I just want to show you one more thing here. I went back and finished up my deflector. You can see how nice and clean that looks, and I did a little something interesting here. I painted that side edge there gray, and then I just lightly frosted it with some of that pearlescent blue, and I think that's going to look really cool on the front of that model. And we're all ready to go here with that, so it should light up really nice. Again, you get that nice little hot spot in there in the center, and once we get an LED in there, that's going to really look nice. The kit that I'm using to light this is from Tenna Controls, and it's got the bipolar double LED, which is one LED that changes from amber to blue, so we'll be able to keep it, not the usual two bulbs where one of them slightly off center. This will be a nice setup on this when it's all done. So, alright guys, that's a wrap. I hope you guys have a good week. I hope you're busy building your models, and I'll catch up to you in a couple of days. We'll talk about this thing some more. We'll see you then. Until then, everybody take care and happy modeling. Here's one more last look at the bridge.